Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum. Welcome to Newsroom. I'm your host, Omar Khalid. Today is Friday, the end of the week. December has begun and we've got lots to share with you. We'll begin, ladies and gentlemen, with Saudi Arabia that has extended the term for the $3 billion deposit that it has put in the State Bank of Pakistan. This was announced by the SPB on Friday that the KSA had extended its term for this deposit in the central bank through the Saudi Fund for Development in support of the country's economy. A huge news as far as bolstering Pakistan's economy is concerned, and also a right step as far as the strong relationship that exists between the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia and the Islamic Republic of Pakistan. This is going to be our first story. Our second story, ladies and gentlemen, concerns climate change. The address of our Premier Shehbaz Sharif Saab yesterday at an important event where he said and urged the world community to stand up and take practical measures to deal with the issue of climate change. He also paid tribute to all the stakeholders, including international partners, for successful climate diplomacy at the Sharm el-Sheikh Climate Summit, otherwise known as COP27. This is going to be our second segment. Our third story, ladies and gentlemen, concerns the gamut of relationship between Pakistan and the United States of America. Now, Ambassador of Pakistan to the US, Masood Khan Saab, has said that Pakistan and the US were reshaping their partnerships in critical areas of trade, investment, green energy, infrastructure, health and education. He said the emphasis was on promoting people-to-people exchanges. The gamut of relationship between Pakistan and the US is going to be our center for the third story. Then we are going to talk about Afghanistan and our Foreign Office spokesperson that has said that Afghanistan has reassured not to allow anyone to use its soil against Pakistan. Then we are going to talk about the International Day for the Abolition of Slavery that is being celebrated today across the world. We'll talk about the important messages of this day. And finally, we'll be talking about veteran journalist Imran Aslam Saab, who has passed away at the age of 70. Our deepest condolences to his family on the sad demise of the veteran journalist. Let's begin with our first story that concerns Saudi Arabia that has extended its term for $3 billion deposit that it has put in the State Bank of Pakistan. The State Bank of Pakistan, ladies and gentlemen, announced today that the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia had extended its term for a $3 billion deposit in the central bank through the Saudi Fund for Development in support of the country's economy. As per a press release, the decision was an implementation of King Salman bin Abdulaziz Al Saud's royal directives. In November last year, ladies and gentlemen, the State Bank of Pakistan had signed an agreement with the SFD to receive $3 billion which would be placed in the central bank's account with an aim to improve its foreign exchange reserve. As of course, it did the trick, and now it has again extended the term for this $3 billion deposit in the State Bank of Pakistan. The State Bank of Pakistan has said in a statement this extension in the term has contributed to meet the external sector challenges and achieve sustainable economic growth for the country. The State Bank of Pakistan also said that the extension of the term in the deposit is a continuation of the support that is being provided by the Saudi Arabian government to the Islamic Republic of Pakistan. We've seen that over the last couple of years. Whenever Pakistan has needed its help, the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia has always stepped in to help Pakistan, especially when Pakistan has needed it the most when it comes to economic crunches, and now also Saudi Arabia has stood up for Pakistan. In September also, the SFD had confirmed the rollover of a $3 billion deposit for one more year. The deposit was set to mature on the 5th of December, and now it has been decided that it is going to, this term has been extended for this deposit of $3 billion. This last October, in fact 2021, October, Saudi Arabia had agreed to revive its financial support to Pakistan. That included this $3 billion that are now in the reserves of the State Bank of Pakistan in safe deposits and $1.2 billion worth of oil supplies on deferred payments. This agreement had been reached during the visit of former Prime Minister Imran Khan to the kingdom in the same month. And of course, the reaction has been very strong as far as this is concerned, and the support that the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia continues to give to Pakistan. Our second story, ladies and gentlemen, concerns Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif Saab, who has urged the world community to stand up and take practical measures to deal with the issue of climate change. COP27 has been a huge success for Pakistan. Also, Shari Rahman Saiba, Shehbaz Sharif Saab have really played a very important role to highlight Pakistan's position and the position of the developing countries as far as climate change is concerned. More in the following report.
The unprecedented floods in Pakistan had affected 33 million, left hundreds of people dead, and inflicted more than $30 billion loss to the country's agriculture, industry, infrastructure, and livestock. Pakistan spearheaded robust climate diplomacy at COP27 climate summit in Egypt, demanding establishment of fund to help countries recover from damage caused by climate disasters. Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif has urged the world community to stand up and take practical measures to deal with the issue of climate change. Eulogizing successful climate diplomacy at Sharm el-Sheikh Climate Summit, Premier Shehbaz Sharif emphasized that establishment of loss and damage fund by COP27 summit is a realization in the world about vagaries of climate change. Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif turned climate change and the devastation wreaked by floods in Pakistan into a global agenda, and Pakistan's stance played a decisive role in international consensus on that matter. The adoption of loss and damage fund is a big win for poorer nations, which have long called for financial compensation because they are often the victims of climate change, such as worsened floods, droughts, heat waves, famines, and storms, despite having contributed little to no pollution that is heating up the planet. Commitments made in Sharm el-Sheikh must be implemented because the climate-induced disaster that hit Pakistan could also hit other parts of the world.
Environmental lawyer Ahmad Rafay joins us online. Ahmad, thank you very much to have joined us. Ahmad, I saw you yesterday at the event. I was supposed to be there but couldn't because of this live show. Nevertheless, it was very heartening to see your contribution at the event and also at COP27 and COP26. When it comes to yesterday and the addresses made by Shehbaz Sharif Saab as well as Hina Rabbani Khar Sahiba and Shahid Rahman Sahiba, how important were those messages as far as highlighting Pakistan's plight and Pakistan's fight against climate change?
Well, thank you, Omar, very much for having me on the show. And I also appreciate the fact that PTV has been consistent in its coverage of climate issues, because there are 30 million Pakistanis today who are facing a winter without shelter and perhaps without food. And we have to prioritize this issue. You know, it's not plight. I have to explain, because loss and damage is an unfulfilled promise of sorts. Let me explain. You see, climate change is caused by greenhouse gases, which have heated the Earth today to about 1 degree centigrade warmer than pre-industrial levels. And this is causing devastation around the world already. There were heat waves in Europe and in China, and floods in Pakistan, Nigeria, and in Spain, and in the Philippines there were hurricanes. You see, in order to control greenhouse gases in 1992, the United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change was signed that was supposed to stabilize greenhouse gas emissions with a principle of common and differentiated responsibilities amongst the states, where more developed states would have the responsibility of mitigating greenhouse gases, and less developed states like Pakistan would have the responsibility of adapting to the impacts of climate change. And within this framework, there was a promise of climate funding, that larger, more developed states would provide the finances to less developed states so that they'd be able to bear the brunt of global greenhouse gas emissions. And this is important because a lot of less developed states are not the main parties responsible for greenhouse gas emissions. Historically, that's been the global north, the countries. I don't want to name specific countries. But this promise hasn't been kept. The global north has not mitigated to the point where it should have.
But why is that, in your point of view, Rafay? Why is that? Why is the global north not serious enough to address the challenges that are currently being faced by the global south, but also might be faced by them in the coming years, as we've seen in the past few months as well? Some of the countries have been facing the brunt of climate change.
Maybe it's because they feel they can survive and without us. Now, that is inequity, and that is the failure of the promise that's part of the UNFCCC. They were supposed to mitigate, and they haven't, and they didn't. And as a result, this year, Imperial College London carried a study that said that 70% of the intensity of these monsoon rains that caused the massive flooding that we've seen is on account of the 1 degree temperature increase, mostly caused by greenhouse gas emissions coming from the global north. Countries like Pakistan, and the damages of these floods have been estimated by the World Bank to be in the region of $30 billion. That's a considerable proportion of Pakistan's overall economy. We simply can't get back on our feet without financial assistance from where it's due. And that's where a loss and damage facility is important. Countries like Pakistan, Nigeria, the Philippines, which are consistently hit by climate disasters, need a mechanism, not a begging bowl, not a loan, a mechanism whereby the promise of the global north to be equitable, to carry out their responsibilities for mitigation, can be clearly achieved. The significance of this COP and its adoption of the loss and damage facility. I mean, the money is not there, and there are plenty of questions around it. But it's a down payment on climate justice, as Minister Sherry Rahman said at COP.
But you know, Minister Sherry Rahman Sahib also warned that we could be facing other challenges in the future as well. How can Pakistan cope with such challenges where it is already facing a challenge of, as you yourself said, 30 million plus people who are bearing the brunt of the floods that happened, and all those who have lost their livestock, their livelihoods, their houses, their families, children who don't have enough to eat or to drink? How can Pakistan cope with another challenge if it is faced with it in the coming months, if the global north does not help it?
We have to be realistic. I mean, this summer, the heat waves this summer, which caused the increased precipitation, is probably the coolest summer that we'll witness for the rest of our lives. Climate change is real, and it's going to get worse. And it's not just Pakistan. I'm talking about the world of humanity here, Omar. Countries of the global south that are not responsible for historical greenhouse gas emissions don't deserve to be left behind. That's not the world we want to live in. And
you
so
know, Rafay, there's another thing that I'd want your point of view on. Sherry Rahman Sahiba talked about climate justice, not charity. Does the global north understand the difference between the two?
You know, the success of many small island states and vulnerable countries and Pakistan's leadership through this COP has resulted in a loss and damage facility, which includes the approval of all the global north countries. The process of the COP, of the UN multilateral system, is that every country has a vote and a veto. So all these decisions that were taken by consensus. And so, yes, in some ways, if you look at it, it is a recognition by the global north that they're not doing enough.
All right, Rafay, also you were at COP27, you were also at COP26. What was your first-hand opinion and view of the reaction of the global north and other important countries in the south as well, as far as forging a consensus for the Global Climate Fund, for this loss and damage fund, and to help those countries who are in need, not as charity but as a responsibility?
You know, I went to COP this year extremely skeptical of the process from what I'd read about. And yet I came across people who had hope in the face of this. What happened this year with Pakistan's leadership at G77 plus China, which is the efforts of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and the Foreign Minister, was to put loss and damage onto the COP agenda. It wasn't even on the agenda. And then the leadership of the Ministry of Climate Change and our minister holding over 25 bilaterals in the course of a 2-week session to be able to forge a consensus amongst the world that this has to happen is just an example of hope succeeding. So we have to at the end of the day realize that our future is very much in our hands and within the demands and vision that we have of ourselves.
I think this demand and vision of our future generations is extremely important, and we need to evolve this consensus and make this consensus even stronger in the days to come, so that by COP28 at least the fund would have become stronger for all those countries who would have been affected by then due to this climate change. As the different endeavors that Pakistan has made in the right direction, whether it be through the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, Bilawal Bhutto Zardari Sahib, Hina Rabani Khar Sahiba, or Sherry Rahman Sahiba in the Ministry of Climate Change, and of course Sherry Rahman Sahiba, who's been awarded one of the most affluent people this year as well, because of all the efforts that she has been putting it. How would you rate Pakistani leadership? Also Shehbaz Sharif Saab, the way he has been highlighting Pakistan's efforts, and the fact that the world needs to understand that Pakistan's loss because of the floods is not Pakistan's fault. Do you feel all these efforts are efforts in the right direction? Do you feel Pakistan needs to do more?
Well, the floods took place less than 6 months ago. And the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, climate change, Pakistan's ability to coordinate internationally, if you look at it, it just took a couple of months. It has been remarkable. But you know, there are many questions left on this loss and damage facility that have to be ironed out by the next COP, which is really next year in November. Questions like which countries are going to pay into it and in what proportion. And also, very importantly, what sort of countries will receive these funds? And if they receive these funds, are those countries spending those funds in the right place to the right people in the right resilient and climate friendly projects. A sort of transparent framework also has to be evolved, and that's where countries like Pakistan, countries of the global south, have to look internally to see whether their climate governance internally morally justifies the funds that they're getting. Because it's not fair to be talking climate justice at one level and receiving money, and then inaugurating coal-fired power plants on the other side within Pakistan.
I totally agree with you. I totally agree with you on that, Ahmad Rafay Alam. And as Shahid Rahman Saiba said, climate stress is resetting our national agendas and capacity to face the 21st century. Let's hope that the global north understand Pakistan's plight and Pakistan's efforts and moves in the right direction. Thank you so very much, Ahmad Rafay Alam, environmental lawyer, to have joined us and to have talked to us about something that is very dear to your heart, that is climate change and Pakistan's endeavors in the right direction. Let's come to our third story, and that concerns the relationship between Pakistan and the United States of America. Ambassador Masood Khan says that both countries are reshaping their partnership in critical areas. More in the following report.
Pakistan, as responsible global actor, has always enshrined some noble principles in its foreign policy toolkit, such as peace, regional equilibrium, strategic balance, shared prosperity, and win-win partnerships. Thus, balanced and broad-based engagement with the United States has always remained significant. Underscoring the highest importance that Pakistan attaches to its partnership with the U.S., Pakistan's ambassador to U.S., Masood Khan, apprised that nearly 1 million Pakistani Americans are a strong bridge between the two nations, and the U.S. has always been a preferred source for technical know-how and military equipment and a top destination for Pak exports, which jumped from $7 to $9 billion last year. Ambassador Masood Khan emphasized that Pakistan and US are reshaping their partnerships in critical areas of trade, investment, green energy, infrastructure, health, and education. Highlighting Pakistan's importance in American calculus, US State Department's principal deputy spokesperson recently reiterated that the United States values its long-standing cooperation with Pakistan and has always viewed a prosperous and democratic Pakistan as critical to U.S. interests. A nation of some 250 million in popular estimates and a nuclear power with geopolitical influence, Pakistan isn't a secondary player, and U.S. has to broaden its base of engagement with Pakistan for serving collective interests of peace, prosperity, and stability in the region.
Zulfiqar Kazmi, Dr. Zulfiqar Kazmi, who's a foreign affairs expert, joins us online. Dr. Saab, thank you very much to have joined us. Dr. Saab, when our Ambassador Masood Khan Saab talks about the core foreign policy principles of our country, peace, regional equilibrium, strategic balance, shared prosperity and connectivity and win-win partnerships, how important is it in the context of the relationship between Pakistan and the US? Kazmi Saab, can you hear us? I think Kazmi Saab cannot hear us. There must be some kind of a mute button. Nevertheless, the relationship between Pakistan and the United States of America has had a few turbulences in the last government, but now things are starting to reshape and go in the right direction. This has been said by Ambassador Masood Khan Saab, who said that Pakistan and the US were reshaping their partnerships in different critical areas that included trade, that included investment, green energy, infrastructure, health, as well as education. He said the emphasis was on promoting people-to-people exchanges. He also talked about recalibrating our relationship beyond Afghanistan and the wars we have fought together. We would continue to counter terrorism and foster regional stability. Dr. Zulfiqar Kazmi, how important are the important pillars that I just mentioned that include regional equilibrium, strategic balance, shared prosperity, connectivity, and win-win partnerships in order to foster a stronger relationship with the US?
Hello.
Yes, Kazmi Saab, can you hear us? I think Zulfiqar Kazmi Saab cannot hear us. Nevertheless, Pakistan's ambassador to the United States, Masood Khan Saab, has said that Pakistan and the US are reshaping their partnerships in critical areas, and I've just talked about those areas that are trade, investment, health, education, green energy and infrastructure. He was addressing a two-day conference that was titled Pakistan at 75, and that was at the Harvard University in Boston. He said Pakistan's emphasis on promoting people-to-people exchanges between the two countries was important. He also talked about recalibrating the relationship between the two countries, that is is Pakistan and the US beyond Afghanistan and the wars they have fought together. He said we could continue to counter terrorism and foster regional stability. He said that the highest importance that Pakistan attaches to its partnership with the US has been a preferred source of technical know-how and military equipment and top destination for Pak exports, which jumped from $7 to $9 billion last year. He also talked about people-to-people contact, and he said around 1 million Pakistani Americans are a strong bridge between our two nations. He also talked about economic collaboration between the two countries and how both the countries are making solid efforts to build these foundations for this collaboration that would serve the country, the people of the two countries, and also contribute to regional stability and prosperity. He said the outlook was bright as the US had de-hyphenated its relationship with Pakistan from Afghanistan, India, and even China. He also talked about reshaping their partnerships in the critical areas. He talked about recalibrating relations beyond Afghanistan. And of course, he talked about the launch of the Green Alliance, a successor to the Green Revolution of the 1960s, that would advance Pakistan-US cooperation in hybrid seeds, biotechnology, and synthetic engineering. The ambassador highlighted that the number of Pakistani students enrolled in the US had increased by 17% to 8,000 this year. He said under the STEM program is going to further grow with the new STEM disciplines and new technologies that will be added so that the students increase also and get more interested in these. He said the outlook is bright, and of course he talked about how the relationship is now getting stronger under the new leadership. The fact also remains that the National Assembly has been informed that the bilateral trade between Pakistan and the United States has witnessed an increase of over 38.3%. This was announced today in the National Assembly, and it was said that Parliamentary Secretary for Commerce Sayyid Javed Ali Shah this was said to the House during question hour that we are actively engaged with the US to get further market access for Pakistani agricultural goods, including mangoes and dates. He also said that our exports to the US is going to increase in the coming years. Dr. Zulfiqar, Kazmi, can you hear us?
I'm trying to connect with you. But,
okay, can you hear us, Dr. Saab?
Yes, I'm hearing you very well. Yeah.
Okay,
yeah.
Wonderful. Dr. Saab, I kind of highlighted some of the areas of importance that Ambassador Masood Saab talked about while addressing a ceremony. He talked about the cooperation between Pakistan and the United States of America, the different gamuts of relationship that will be strengthened in the times to come. What are the key areas of cooperation between the two countries, if I were to ask you?
I think that it was a very important meeting, and Ambassador Masood Khan, because he is in US-Pakistan diplomacy from last many, many years. So he is representing very well, because I think that what he said at the forum is very important, because US-Pakistan relationship is very important, not only bilateral relationship or economic relationship. Even it is very important for the regional peace in Pakistan, Afghanistan, and all over in Asia. And it's very important, But Ambassador Masood Khan has highlighted it's very much, explaining to our policy in Pakistan as our foreign minister, both leaders in the diplomacy now, Hina Rabbani Kar and Bilawal Zardari Bhutto, both are young people, they have fresh ideas, and they are refreshing the policy of US-Pakistan, that how they could move forward. So what Masood Khan has said, Ambassador Masood Khan has said, it is definitely, expressing what Pakistan needs at the moment and what US needs to understand about US-Pakistan relationship. We have a long partnership, It's not for these years. It's for the decades, Right after, independence, US-Pakistan have a very close relationship, And in partner in war and terrorism, it was a great role what Pakistan had played in Pakistan for the regional peace. So,
all right, Dr. Saab, I'd like to have your point of view on one of the comments that Ambassador Masood Khan Saab said, and he said that the US has de-hyphenated its relationship with Pakistan from Afghanistan, India, and even China. How important is this statement in the current geo-economic, geo-strategic scenario?
Yes, definitely what Masood Khan was asking to the United States. It's a very valid question because the US needs to focus on all those aspects which are very important for Pakistan and Afghanistan relationship as well, because it could benefit to the whole world. Even America is looking for. So Ambassador Masood Khan has drawn the attention of the world leaders and specifically to America that what is their role? Economic prosperity in that region is most important. It's directly linked to the, peace and prosperity, for the people of Afghanistan and Pakistan. Masood Khan was focusing that China definitely have a great role in that, region, but as a partner with America, it will never affect the US-Pakistan and China relationship. All countries need their own, way to collaborate with each other. So this is very collaborative and cooperative relationship with Pakistan and US have. I think that Masood Khan has raised very good questions, and he has answered very good questions, of the forum, because Pakistan and US both have a long-standing for one thing, that is the peace and prosperity of that region. And it is very crucial, very important. If America will not be, taking all those steps which are needed in that region, I think that it will be a dream, peace will be a dream in that area. So Ambassador Masood Khan, while talking with the, with that, interactive session, it was really something that we need to speak out, and we need to, even translate in our policy in America and Pakistan. And Pakistan definitely is taking care of that one, because in previous days, what is happening in Pakistan and what is happening in Afghanistan, it is urgently needed to address all those issues, because terrorism cannot be eliminated until United States will not play its role for, for the economic prosperity.
Well, speaking of terrorism, Dr. Saab, the US has branded Al-Qaeda and TTP militants as global terrorists, which is, I think, a very strong statement that has also emanated from the US. You talked about counterterrorism and Pakistan and the US working together as far as that is concerned. Also, the US has been helping Pakistan in the floods, $97 million of US flood assistance related to Pakistan, of which 8 million were recently also given. And how important in this factor, whether it be working in counterterrorism or working in on the economic front or the others, is the role of the people of the two countries, people-to-people contact that Masood Saab has also highlighted. A short answer, sir.
Indeed, it's very important, people-to-people contact is urgently needed. And definitely these two countries have a very close collaboration in that perspective, people-to-people contact. Without people-to-people contact, we cannot, give a meaning to our policies in America and in Pakistan. So Pakistan and America should, bring more force in that area and bring more, practical steps in that area, that how people could be helpful in Pakistan. Pakistani, there is a good exchange program from United States America that they bring.
Of course, under the STEM program that we have got so many Pakistani Americans that are working in the United States of America in different capacities, whether it be doctors or engineers. Thank you so very much, Dr. Zulfiqar Kazmi, to have joined us, Foreign Affairs expert, talking about the gamut of relationship between Pakistan and the United States of America. The ties are being reset in the right direction, and Ambassador Masood Khan Saab highlighted that in one of the recent meetings that he has held. Let's come to our last three stories very quickly. The first concerns Afghanistan, where the Foreign Office spokesperson from Pakistan has said that Afghanistan has reassured it that it will not allow anyone to use its soil against Pakistan. This was said by the spokesperson of our Foreign Office, Zahra Baloch, while she was addressing the weekly media briefing in Islamabad. She said that the Afghan authorities had given their reassurance during the visit of Minister of State for Foreign Affairs, Hina Rabbani Khar Sahiba, to Afghanistan recently. The spokesperson also said that Tehreek-e-Taliban Pakistan is a threat to Pakistan, and we hope that Afghanistan will fulfill its promises. Let's hope so, because we are seeing a lot of very negative news emanating as far as the Pakistani High Commission in Kabul is concerned. Let's come to our next story, and that concerns the International Day for the Abolition of Slavery that is being celebrated or observed across the world today. The United Nations Secretary General on this very important day said that we need to recognize that the legacy of the transatlantic trade of enslaved Africans reverberates to this day, scarring our societies and impeding equitable development. He said we also need to identify and eradicate contemporary forms of slavery such as trafficking in persons, sexual exploitation, child labor, forced marriage, and the use of children in armed conflict. The theme of this day this year is stories of courage, resistance to slavery, and unity against racism. Racism is something that we have seen in almost every country of the world, and this is something that we collectively as a society and as nations need to work together to abolish. This in this 21st century is something that should not be seen, but it is nevertheless being seen. Now, the United Nations Secretary General also said that the most marginalized groups remain particularly vulnerable, including ethnic, religious, linguistic minorities, migrants, children, and persons with diverse gender identities and sexual orientations. He said the majority of these vulnerable persons are women. He also said that on this International Day, he called on the governments and societies to recommit to eradicating slavery. Let's hope this message gets across every day on this, every year on this very day. This day is celebrated to make the world cognizant of what slavery exactly means and how in different forms and manifestations slavery is still happening across the world. Let's come to our last story, and it's a very sad day for journalism in Pakistan because Imran Aslam, a veteran journalist, president of the Geo and Jung Group, has passed away in Karachi on Friday. He was 70 years of age. He had been unwell for quite some time and was undergoing treatment at a local hospital. He was an all-and-out visionary. He had a 3-decade-long career as far as journalism is concerned. It was marked by major accomplishment. He wrote scripts for very, very important occasions, and he planned out major shows as well. His death has, of course, triggered out a wave of grief amongst the fellow journalists, the senior journalists all across Pakistan, and also our Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif, who has expressed deep grief over his death and has prayed for the departed soul. He said the journalist services in Pakistan will always be remembered. Climate Change Minister Shahid Rahman Sahiba also said she was deeply saddened, describing what he has excelled in is beyond this space. She said since Chief Minister Murad Ali Shah also expressed deep condolences to the journalist's family and prayed for the deceased soul. Mazhar Abbas Saab, who's a renowned journalist, said that this news was shocking to him. He said he was one of the finest people he came across since the days he first met him in the 90s in the daily The Star. So the fact remains that whether you belong to one journalistic group or the other, if you are renowned, if you are good, if you are sincere in whatever you do, you are universally acknowledged for the services that you do, and you are extremely missed once you no longer are part of us. And this is what has happened with Imran Aslam Saab. He was recognized for his services all across Pakistan and also beyond, and now that he's no longer with us, his work still remains with us. May his soul rest in eternal peace. With that, we come to an end of today's newsroom. We'll see you inshallah on Monday with new story segments that pertain to us, you and Pakistan. Stay safe. Allah Hafiz.